My name is Elena, and until recently, I thought I had the kind of life that people only dream about. A stable job I loved, parents who supported me, a fiancé who seemed perfect, and a wedding just days away that I had been planning for over a year. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that life has a cruel way of showing you truths when you least expect them. I grew up in a small town, the oldest of two daughters. Being the eldest meant I was always the responsible one, the one who had to set an example. My parents relied on me to help with Sophie, my younger sister. Sophie was 3 years younger, and from the very beginning, she was different. Beautiful, charming, and endlessly spoiled. She was the kind of girl people noticed the second she walked into a room. I loved her. I truly did. I used to cover for her mistakes, share my allowance, even lie to our parents when she got into trouble. But loving Sophie often felt like standing in her shadow. She had a way of drawing attention, and I learned to live with being the background character in my own family. Still, despite her selfishness, I always told myself she was just my little sister. She'd grow out of it. And when Daniel came into my life, I thought maybe, just maybe, Sophie and I would finally find common ground. Daniel was everything I ever prayed for. Tall, kind-eyed, attentive. He was the kind of man who made me feel like I was the only person in the world when he looked at me. When he proposed, I felt like the luckiest woman alive. Even Sophie seemed happy for me. At least, at first. I threw myself into planning the wedding, carefully picking out every detail. My dress, the venue, the flowers, everything had to be perfect. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. But little by little, I began to notice things. Sophie was always hanging around Daniel, always joking with him, brushing against him as if she couldn't respect boundaries. I told myself I was imagining it. After all, she was my sister. Sisters fight, sisters compete. It didn't mean anything. But something about the way she kept touching the dress when no one was looking, the way she ran her fingers along the lace as if she wanted to own it, it unsettled me. And then there was Daniel. He started acting strange. At first, it was small things, showing up late to dinner, brushing off my questions with vague excuses. His phone, once left carelessly on the counter, was suddenly glued to his hand. One night I caught Sophie covering for him. I asked, "Where's Daniel? He was supposed to meet me here an hour ago." Without missing a beat, Sophie replied, "Oh, he called me. Said he got stuck at work. Didn't he tell you?" Her tone was casual, almost too casual, and I remember staring at her, wondering exactly when Daniel had called her instead of me. That night lying in bed, I tried to push the thoughts away. This was my wedding, my family, my future. I couldn't let paranoia ruin it. But deep down, something gnawed at me. Something was wrong. And until I noticed Daniel's strange behavior growing bolder, I realized this wasn't just nerves. Something was terribly, terribly wrong.
Before Daniel could answer, Sophie jumped in. "Oh, he's been swamped with the new site," she said smoothly. "Lots of late-night planning." I froze. How did she know that? I hadn't even asked him yet. Daniel glanced at her, a flicker of panic flashing across his face, before he quickly looked down at his plate. "Yeah, busy times." The conversation moved on, but I couldn't. My fork hung in midair, my food growing cold. Later that night, I whispered to Daniel as we sat alone in the living room, "Why did Sophie answer for you? Has she been calling you?" His jaw tightened. "She just guessed. Don't start making things up." The sharpness in his voice silenced me, but my heart wouldn't stop pounding. I'd never seen him so defensive. And then came the night that nearly confirmed my worst fears. It was late, well past midnight. I couldn't sleep, so I went downstairs for some water. As I walked toward the kitchen, I heard it. Whispers, low voices, hushed laughter. I froze in the hallway, my hand tightening around the banister. It was them. Daniel and Sophie. I strained to listen. Sophie's voice floated through first. "You're so bad. What if she finds out?" Daniel's reply was muffled, too quiet for me to make out. Then came more giggles. Her giggles. My stomach twisted. I stepped closer, my heart hammering, but as I rounded the corner, the voices stopped. The kitchen light clicked off, and I saw Sophie slip out into the hall, brushing past me. "Oh, Elena," she said casually, as if nothing was wrong. "Couldn't sleep either." I stood frozen, staring at her. She smelled faintly of Daniel's cologne. Before I could respond, Daniel appeared behind her, yawning theatrically. "Just getting some water. Everything okay?" My mouth went dry. They both looked so calm, so collected, like I was the crazy one. I forced a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Right, the playlist." Sophie looped her arm in mine as if nothing had happened. "You worry too much, Elena. We're just trying to help make your big day special." Her grip was tight, almost possessive, and for a moment I thought I saw something flicker in her eyes. A challenge. That night, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I replayed that scene, their startled faces, their awkward explanations. And then something even stranger happened. The next morning, I found Daniel's jacket draped over the back of the chair in our dining room. In the pocket, there was a receipt from a small cafe downtown. The timestamp read 11:42 p.m., the night I'd heard them whispering in the kitchen. My hands shook as I held it. He hadn't told me he went anywhere that night. And why would Sophie have been awake and downstairs at the same time? I shoved the receipt back, my chest tightening. I wanted answers, but every time I looked at both of them, I felt paralyzed. Like if I asked the wrong question, I'd get an answer I wasn't ready to hear. I told myself to stay calm, to focus on the wedding, that maybe I was being paranoid, that my mind was spinning stories out of nothing. But deep down, a voice whispered relentlessly, "You're not wrong. Something is happening right in front of you." And soon I wouldn't just suspect it, I would see it. And I would never be able to unsee it. If there was one part of the wedding I had dreamed about since I was a little girl, it was the dress. Not the flowers, not the cake, not even the venue. Just the dress.
I had pictured myself walking down the aisle, the fabric flowing behind me, the entire room holding its breath. To me, the dress wasn't just fabric. It was everything. My moment, my identity, my chance to feel like I truly mattered. So, when the boutique called to say my gown was ready for its final fitting, I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. My mother insisted on coming with me. Sophie, of course, invited herself along. The boutique was elegant, filled with mirrors and soft lighting. I slipped into the gown, and the moment I saw my reflection, tears filled my eyes. It was perfect. Lace sleeves, a fitted waist, a train that trailed like a dream. For the first time in weeks, I felt hopeful again. But then Sophie walked in. She tilted her head, her eyes narrowing. It's nice." "Nice?" I echoed, my voice sharp. "Yeah, I mean, it suits you," she said slowly, circling me like a predator. "But it's very traditional, kinda safe, don't you think? Maybe a bit plain." I swallowed hard, trying not to let her words crush me. My mother snapped, "Sophie, enough. She looks beautiful." But Sophie wasn't finished. She stepped closer, brushing her fingers along the delicate lace sleeve, almost reverently. "The fabric is gorgeous, though. So soft." Her hand lingered too long, too possessive, like the dress belonged to her. I shifted uncomfortably, pulling my arm back. "Don't touch it, Sophie." She gave me a small smirk. "Relax. I'm not going to ruin it. I've never seen something so beautiful up close." Her tone made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. As I twirled in front of the mirror, I caught her reflection. The way she was staring at me wasn't admiration, it was envy. Her eyes weren't sparkling with joy for me, they were dark, sharp, almost hungry. It was the same look she gave me when we were kids and I got something she wanted, a toy, attention, even praise from our parents. Sofo had always wanted what was mine, but this was different. This was my wedding, my future, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of fear. That night, I hung the dress carefully in my closet, running my hands over the fabric as if to reassure myself it was real. But even as I closed the door, I couldn't shake Sophie's expression from my mind. The way she looked at the dress, the way she looked at me. I should have trusted my instincts. I should have known that Sophie wasn't finished yet, and I should have realized that my dress, the one thing I treasured most, wouldn't remain mine for long. The morning of my wedding should have been magical. I woke up before dawn, nerves dancing in my stomach, my heart racing with anticipation. Sunlight filtered softly through the curtains, painting my room in gold. My gown hung in the corner, a silent promise of the life I thought I was about to begin. I pressed my hand against my chest, whispering to myself, "This is it, Elena, the day you've been waiting for." But something felt off. The house was too quiet. No laughter from the kitchen, no clattering of breakfast dishes, no Sophie barging in to criticize my makeup. Just silence. I slipped out of bed and padded down the hallway, calling softly, "Sophie? Mom?" No answer. And then I noticed my bedroom door was ajar. At first, I thought maybe my mother had gone in to check on the dress. But when I pushed the door open, my breath caught in my throat. There, standing in front of the full-length mirror, was Sophie, wearing my wedding dress. The lace sleeves clung to her arms, the fabric hugging her figure, the trains spilling out across the floor. For a moment, I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. It felt like I was outside my own body watching a nightmare unfold. Finally, I choked out, "What are you doing?"
She turned to me, her eyes glinting. "Isn't it obvious? Just trying it on. You know I've always wondered what it would feel like." My voice shook with fury. "Take it off, now." But instead of obeying, she smoothed the fabric against her waist, her lips curling into a smug smile. "It feels perfect, Elena, almost like it was made for me." Tears stung my eyes. "Why would you do this? It's my dress, my day." She tilted her head, her tone shifting from playful to cruel. "Your day? Funny you say that, because Daniel doesn't think of it that way." The room tilted around me. "What are you talking about?" Her eyes locked onto mine, cold and unflinching. And then, with a kind of twisted satisfaction, she said the words that shattered everything. "Daniel and I have been together for months." The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I shook my head, stepping back. "You're lying. You're just jealous." But she only smirked, her voice low and steady. "He tells me things, Elena, things he's never told you. Do you really want me to prove it?" I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My throat felt like it was closing. Sophie turned back toward the mirror, admiring herself once more. "You've always been the boring sister, the safe one." He wanted excitement, and I gave it to him. I felt my legs trembling beneath me, my hands cold as ice. My own sister, my fiancé, the two people I trusted most in the world, and they had chosen this. I wanted to scream, to rip the dress off her body, to run out of the house and never look back. But I couldn't move. All I could do was stand there and listen as Sophie, still wearing my gown, twisted the knife deeper. "Face it, Elena. You're not the one he really wants." And in that moment, My world shattered. I don't know how long I stood there staring at Sophie in my dress, my mind blank and racing all at once. It was like my body couldn't decide whether to collapse or fight. Finally, I managed to whisper, my voice breaking, "You're lying. You're just trying to ruin my wedding." Sophie laughed, actually laughed, a sharp, mocking sound that sent chills crawling up my spine. "Do you really think I'd go this far just to ruin a dress?" she said, twirling slowly, the lace fanning out around her. "I'm telling you the truth, Elena. Daniel and I, we've been together for months. He comes to me when you bore him. He tells me things about your relationship that you'd never want to hear." I staggered back, shaking my head. No, he wouldn't. But he did. Her eyes sparkled with triumph. "Like how you play it so safe. How you're predictable. How you don't challenge him. How with me, it's different, fun, dangerous." He said those exact words, Elena. Dangerous. My stomach twisted. My legs felt like they were going to give out from under me. "Stop," I whispered, pressing my palms to my ears. "Just stop." But she stepped closer, lowering her voice to a venomous whisper. "Do you remember the night you were sick and Daniel told you he was staying late at work?" I froze. Her smile widened. "He wasn't at work. He was with me." My knees buckled, and I sank onto the edge of the bed, clutching the sheets like they could anchor me. Every word she said was like a blade. "You're lying," I repeated weakly, but even as I said it, doubt clawed at me. The late nights, the phone he guarded like it held state secrets, the hushed whispers in the kitchen, the cafe receipt, it all connected. Sophie knelt down in front of me, her face inches from mine, still wearing my dress. "You want proof?" she whispered. "Ask him about the scar on my shoulder. Ask him how he kissed it the night you were asleep upstairs." A sob tore from my throat. I shoved her away, shaking violently. "Get out of my room! Take it off, Sophie!" She stood, adjusting the bodice of my gown, unbothered by my tears. "You can scream at me all you want, but nothing will change the truth. Daniel doesn't want you. He wants me." I covered my face, my chest heaving, shame and fury colliding inside me. My little sister, my fiancé, the two people I trusted most, and together they had destroyed me. But even as Sophie smirked, convinced she had won, a cold clarity began to creep into my veins. She thought she had broken me. She thought I would crumple and call off the wedding quietly, saving her and Daniel from public humiliation. But she didn't know me as well as she thought she did. Because in that moment, beneath the heartbreak and the rage, one thought sparked like fire in my mind. They won't get away with this. Not today, not in front of everyone. I wiped my tears, staring at Sophie with a steadiness that made her smirk falter. She didn't realize it yet, but this wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of theirs. The hours between Sophie's confession and the ceremony felt unreal, like I was moving through a nightmare in slow motion. I forced myself to breathe, to keep going through the motions. Makeup, hair, smiles for photos I knew I'd never frame. My hands trembled as the stylist pinned my veil, but my face was calm. I couldn't let anyone see what was happening inside me. Not yet. Sophie avoided me for the rest of the morning, probably thinking she had scared me into silence. I watched her float around the house like she owned it, flirting with the groomsmen, tossing her hair like she was the bride instead of me. Every time our eyes met, she smirked, as if daring me to explode. I didn't, because I had a plan. The guests began arriving at the church, their chatter filling the air with excitement. My mother hugged me, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You look radiant, sweetheart," she whispered.
My father kissed my forehead and told me how proud he was. Their love hit me like a knife because they had no idea what was about to happen. As I stood in the bridal room, staring at my reflection one last time, my best friend Rachel squeezed my hand. "Nervous?" she asked gently. I swallowed hard. "You could say that." She gave me a reassuring smile, unaware of the storm inside me. "Don't worry, once you're walking down that aisle, everything will feel right." But I knew it wouldn't. Not this time. When the music began, I stepped into the hallway, my dress trailing behind me. The doors opened, and all eyes turned toward me. For a moment, I felt the weight of every gaze, the admiration, the joy, the envy. It should have been the happiest moment of my life. Instead, it was the calm before the reckoning. Daniel stood at the altar, looking handsome in his suit, his smile wide and practiced. Sophie sat in the front row, her chin lifted, her expression unreadable. As I walked down the aisle, my heart thundered, not with love, but with fury. Every step echoed with the knowledge of what they had done. Every smile from the guests reminded me of the betrayal hidden beneath the polished surface of this perfect day. When I reached the altar, Daniel reached for my hands. His grip was warm, steady, but to me it felt like chains. He whispered, "You look beautiful," and I wanted to laugh in his face. The ceremony began. The priest spoke words of love, of union, of forever, words that felt poisoned now. And then the moment came. The priest's voice rang out, solemn and steady. "If anyone here knows a reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." I felt the entire church fall silent. I could hear my own breathing, ragged beneath the veil. My hands tightened in Daniel's. I took a deep breath, and I knew exactly what I was about to do. The words of the priest hung in the air. "If anyone here knows a reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony." A cold, quiet clarity swept over me. Every betrayal, every whispered secret, every late-night suspicion, I was done hiding it. I could feel Sophie's eyes on me, sharp and calculating, daring me to ruin everything. But I didn't hesitate. I pulled my hands from Daniel's and let the silence stretch, drawing every eye in the church to me. "Actually," I said, my voice steady, louder than I expected, echoing off the high ceilings. The murmur of the crowd started softly, then grew as people realized I wasn't going to stop. "Actually," I repeated, my chest heaving, "there is a reason this wedding cannot go on."
Daniel's brow furrowed, confusion flashing in his eyes. Sophie's smug smile faltered slightly, her eyes narrowing. "I know it's shocking," I continued, keeping my voice calm even though my heart was pounding like a drum, "and I wish it weren't true, but—" I let the pause linger, savoring the tension. "My fiancé has been unfaithful." Gasps erupted across the congregation. My mother clutched her pearls. My father's face turned crimson. Sophie's hand flew to her mouth, a flicker of panic passing across her features. Daniel's lips parted, but no sound came out. I took a step closer, locking eyes with Sophie. "And the person he's been with is my sister." The church fell into stunned silence. Chairs scraped back as guests shifted in their seats. Someone whispered, "No, it can't be true." Sophie tried to speak, but I cut her off. "Yes, Sophie. You wore my dress, you flaunted your betrayal, and you thought you could humiliate me, but it ends here." Daniel's voice finally cracked, weak and panicked. "Elena, it's not what you think." "Oh, really?" I shot back. "Because everything you've done points to exactly what I think. The late nights, the secret calls, the whispers in the kitchen, all of it. And now today, the morning of my wedding, my sister decided to try on my gown while confessing to sleeping with you. I paused, letting the weight of my words hit. Aunt Marianne, who had been quietly observing from the front pew, nodded slowly, her eyes gleaming with vindication. Sophie stammered, trying to deny it, her voice trembling. Elena, we... But it was too late. The proof was everywhere. The late-night receipts, the hushed texts, the obvious tension that even the guests had been noticing but didn't understand. Marianne stepped forward, her voice clear and authoritative. It's true. I overheard part of your conversations. You've lied to this family long enough. My chest heaved with a mix of rage and relief. I had exposed them. I had turned the tables. Sophie sank into her seat, her smirk completely gone. Daniel's face went pale. The whispers among the guests grew louder. I saw friends and family staring at them in disbelief, some shaking their heads in shock. And then I did something I had rehearsed in my head for days, but never thought I'd have the courage to do. I turned to the priest and said, I cannot marry this man. Not now, not ever. I stepped back, raising my chin, the veil brushing my shoulders, and let the silence settle like a shroud. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. Without a backward glance, I walked down the aisle, leaving Daniel and Sophie frozen in the middle of the chaos. The whispers swelled into murmurs, and I felt a rush of liberation as the door swung open and sunlight spilled onto the steps outside. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The humiliation, the shock, the betrayal, they were all theirs now. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt a flicker of freedom. And though my heart ached, though tears blurred my vision, I knew one thing for certain. I had taken control of my life. The moment I stepped outside the church, the cool air hit me like a shock, clearing my head and my heart at the same time. The sunlight was harsh, almost blinding, but I welcomed it. It felt like a new beginning, even if everything inside me still hurt. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay there. Not in that building, not with the whispers, not with the stares. People were staring, some with shock, some with curiosity, and some with what I could only call relief. Perhaps they had suspected something too, but now it was out in the open. Rachel appeared beside me, her hand finding mine instantly. Elena, are you okay? She asked softly. I shook my head, but for the first time it wasn't entirely with despair. I will be, I whispered. It just hurts. She squeezed my hand. They deserved this. Don't doubt that. You did what was right. And she was right. I had exposed the betrayal in front of everyone, and now Daniel and Sophie had nowhere to hide. My sister, the one who wore my dress, sat in humiliation in the front row, her face pale and twisted with shock. Daniel's carefully curated charm was gone, replaced with panic and disbelief. Back at home, my parents had been informed. My mother hugged me tightly, tears streaming down her face. Elena, I had no idea. I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. My father, stoic as ever, just held me silently. I could feel the pride in his grip, pride that I had stood up for myself when so many would have crumbled. As the days passed, life returned to some semblance of normal, though it was anything but ordinary. Sophie tried to explain herself, begged for forgiveness, tried to manipulate our parents, but they had seen enough, and her charm no longer worked. Daniel called me repeatedly, apologizing, pleading, trying to convince me it had just happened, and that he had made a mistake. I didn't answer. Months went by. Sophie and Daniel attempted to maintain some semblance of a relationship, but without the secrecy and thrill, it fell apart. Their affair had no foundation, only lies, betrayal, and selfishness. And me? I began to rebuild my life. I threw myself into work, taking on new responsibilities and rediscovering the parts of myself I had buried under fear and doubt. I traveled to places I had dreamed about, but never had the courage to go.
I reconnected with friends I had neglected. I learned to laugh again without thinking about the betrayal lurking around every corner. And slowly, the pain began to dull. It didn't vanish completely, but it became manageable. It became fuel for my strength rather than chains of despair. I realized something profound through all of this. Trust, once broken, can never be fully restored, but your self-worth doesn't have to be defined by those who betray you. Sophie and Daniel had tried to steal my happiness. They had tried to humiliate me on the day I was supposed to celebrate love, but they had failed. I was free, and freedom, I learned, is the most powerful kind of revenge. It's been months since that day, the day that was supposed to be my happiest, yet became the day my life changed forever. I often think about Sophie and Daniel, not with anger anymore, not with the burning rage that consumed me back then, but with a quiet understanding. Some people reveal their true colors at the worst possible moment, and all you can do is step away and reclaim your life. Sophie tried to rebuild her life too, I hear. She moved to another city, started a new job, and tried to spin a story where she was the victim. But the truth has a way of following people, no matter how far they run. Daniel, on the other hand, well, he realized too late that charm and lies don't make love. He's alone now, left with his regrets. As for me, I took my time. I didn't rush into anything else. I focused on myself, my career, my friends, my passions. I traveled, I laughed, I cried when I needed to, and I learned to love life again without anyone else's shadow looming over me. Sometimes, late at night, I think back to the church, the gasp of the guests, the shocked faces of my family, and I smile. Not out of malice, but because I remember the moment I finally took my power back. Walking away from Daniel, walking away from Sophie, walking away from the life I thought I wanted. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also the most liberating. I learned that day that betrayal doesn't define you, and humiliation, no matter how public, can never take away your dignity if you hold on to it yourself. I still remember the dress, hanging in my closet. I never wore it again, not to a wedding, not to a party, but I didn't discard it either. It sits there as a reminder, not of betrayal, not of pain, but of resilience. Because in the end, the dress didn't belong to Sophie, and my life didn't belong to Daniel. It belonged to me. And finally, I had it back.